Please, come on. So, I thought we would have more people for this topic. I mean, we're on the growth stage, but we're going to speak about values and what values is the backbone for sustainable growth. So I'm Stéphanie Hospital. I'm the CEO and founder of OneRagtime. We're investing in tech companies, and values matters a lot for us. And I'm surrounded by wonderful speakers, talents. So Christian Kroll from Ecosia. So Christian, welcome. Maybe a few words on Ecosia. And you?
Yeah, so Ecosia is a search engine which basically works like any other search engine, but we use the profits that we're making to plant trees. And that's how we planted 135 million trees so far.
Wow, impressive. So values matters. So John Kim from Sendbird. So from Korea to Northern California to here. John?
Yep. Hi, folks. I'm John, founder CEO of Sendbird. So we are the world's #1 chat API. Today we power over 200 million people's conversations every month on apps like DoorDash, Delivery Hero, Paytm, Reddit, and so forth. Collectively, we have raised over $220 million in total funding. And recently I was minted as a unicorn in Silicon Valley. So nice to meet you all.
So very well surrounded too. And then we have Alexandre Pachulski. So Talentsoft, but retired, correct?
No, for the Talentsoft part, I'm one of the co-founders of Talentsoft, which has been acquired in July. And I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, always in HR. And the very idea of Townsoft actually was really to reinvent the work experience and leverage all the talent management processes to be sure that work can be fulfilling and not only a way to earn your living. So we've been working on all the recruiting, learning, and these kind of processes. And yes, it's been acquired because we reached a certain amount of customers and so on, and now the adventure is going to continue.
So, well done. Huh? So, maybe I start with John. So, John, when I had to animate this panel, I was surprised to have you. And I'm just asking why John is relevant to speak about values for sustainable growth. So, very simple with Christian, with Ecosia, planting trees. Alexandre is taking care, or used to take care of talents at Talentsoft. So, but you, messaging.
Yeah. So if you think about our company's mission is to build connections in a digital world. And especially during COVID, as we have all experienced, we lost so much of human connections in physical world. And a lot of our connections have moved on to it digitally. And even if after the vaccination, we're starting to see more and more of the human interactions and connections building on digital spaces. And just to give you a couple of examples of the work that we did with our customer, as you might know, in India, just a couple of quarters ago, there was a major outbreak in COVID, Delta variants. And one of our customers, Paytm, has been rolling out, and they're a big fintech company in India, but they also rolled out something called vaccination alerts. Basically, you can get vaccination in a local area. You get a real-time notification where you can get a free dose of vaccination. And it was instrumental in terms of helping India recover from COVID. And we're the company behind the scene that was powering all of those communication, sending notification to people so that people can get access to vaccination in real time. So our customer was saving lives, and we're really proud that we were able to partner behind the scenes to power all of this communication at scale. And other than that too, like a lot of the people's relationship are now building on like dating apps, right? Especially during COVID, people still needed to meet with other people. So we're powering not only text messaging, but also video dating as well. So people can actually form families, go on dates virtually. And actually, when we got vaccinated, they got to meet up and actually start forming families. So we're really proud to power a lot of those meaningful connections in this.
So you power meaningful conversation and connection where Alexandre is powering meaningful jobs. That's it, and why values matters so much in the development of Talentsoft. You've been acquired recently. I mean, how can you illustrate that since day one, values has been the DNA of Talentsoft?
Well, basically, when you create what could seem as a HR ERP, you could just work on efficiency, and efficiency leads to productivity and so on and so on. Except that from day one, we took the risk to tell our potential customers, which are HR, to say, actually, efficiency is good. But if you do not aim fulfillment, you won't retain people. You won't get the best out of them. And it happens that this reason, which is beneficial for companies, is key for society, because today we won't be able to solve all the issues that we know actually if people are not committed to what they do. So the very value we wanted to expose on day one is alignment. In France, we say congruence. It means alignment. It's like the ikigai concept of Japanese. What you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And in the very beginning, all the algorithms was not about an immediate job that could be interesting for someone to get efficiency. It was more about this job will allow this someone to develop these skills, which is more aligned on what he seems to want to do. And so we took this very risk, which was not efficiency, but a longer path, a more risky path, which is long-term fulfillment that finally bring efficiency, productivity, and that wasn't that easy 15 years ago.
Yeah, I can imagine that 15 years ago when you were speaking about values to customers, I mean, your first customers, maybe they were looking at you, okay, why is he saying? I mean, it's about business. But when we look today at, I mean, all the evolution of the world, I mean, you have many people speaking about impact, values, ethics. But is it compatible with the development of a company? And maybe we will tackle the very, I mean, particular example of Ecosia. Because preparing this interview, I discovered that Ecosia was a totally non-profit but profitable company. So could you explain why and how you made it? And what was your purpose as a founder?
Yeah, so when I started the company, my goal was really not to make a lot of money or to have an exit at some point. But I really just observed, for me, two big problems. One of them, climate change, and the other, social injustice. And that were the things that I wanted to solve. So everything basically in the whole setup of the company followed those objectives. And the way we're set up, that we're giving basically all of our profits to tree planting, is basically a consequence of that. So we're making this the core of our company. Our key metric at Ecosia is trees planted and not, I don't know, some kind of revenue or dividends or something like that. And this for me really transforms how a business is being run. And I'm super happy that I can work in a company like that. So I think my contribution, if you compare it to, we're 100 people now, so there are a lot of people working on this together. And personally, my contribution, I feel, isn't even that big, but it's a team working on this. And also, I think we would not be able to do that if there were not millions of users using us every day. And I think this is what you kind of, if people believe in something and work on something together, this is what you can get out of it. So you really have to start with a vision, and that vision was to make the world at least a little bit better. And then if people kind of understand your why and sign up for this, then you can really achieve a lot together. And this is how we basically plant a tree every second, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and that so early in the market you decided to do that. I mean, today it would become not common, but not so unusual to have that purpose, and you had it 12 years ago. John, if I may say, when I look at Sunbird, I think it's typical of very skyrocketing tech companies. I mean, unicorns and you have the best investors surrounding you, you're serial entrepreneurs. But what are the value of your companies? What are the value for your employees? How do you make sure you align everybody on the same values?
That's a wonderful question, because one thing that we, even as a seed stage company, when we were just about maybe 5 to 8 people, did really well was we started with a set of core values. We have 7 core values at our company that we take very, very seriously. And number 1 value is endless tenacity for customers. So we try to go really above and beyond, not just be customer-centric. We want to really impress the customer in a way by going above and beyond in terms of their expectations. And when we say customers, it's not just the customer who pay us. It could be if you're, let's say, working in what we call people and culture. People typically call it HR. Their customer will be internal employees. So in terms of what your job is, you really define how your customers, who your customers are, and how do you actually go above and beyond. And also we have values like buck stops here. It means there's no blame culture. You try to own the responsibility of any consequences. It's not about who did right or wrong. It's about what we learned from it, and then how can we actually do better in the future. So these kind of core values, we look very deeply during the interview process. Whenever there's a promotion, we also want to relook at whether that person is strongly aligned to our core values or not. So it's really a pillar. It's not about my values. It's about what we all agreed to when we built this company and growing the company. So we're kind of using those core values as a way to align our company and continue to scale our organization.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's the exercise every single entrepreneur should do at start, define the core values and then have the operating principles. So we did that also for companies. So Alexandre, you've been, starting Talentsoft, then you sold it, or it has been sold to a large company. How could you keep the values part of your journey when you grew so much your workforce, and what have you done to keep that? And at the end of the day, when you left Talentsoft, did you recognize yourself in the company you created 15 years ago?
Well, if I'm honest, which I can be now, actually, when you grow, you fight to stick to your culture, stick to your values, but the truth is that when we've raised 25 million euros, and it's only 25, and we doubled size from 200s to 400s, you lose everything. Because it's a new company. You doubled, and people ask you in the stairs, hello, Alex, who are you? And suddenly you don't understand what's happening, because before, you were really spending time sharing everything, working every day with people. So you got to wonder yourself, can I reinvent my company keeping the very reason why I've created this company or not? And actually, I believe we had no choice. We were very ambitious because I don't know if I can ask you to work, but can you raise hand if you know someone who is suffering at work? Just one someone. It's almost everyone. It's very ambitious to make that change because it's been lasting for decades and decades. So you got to stick to your ambitious. At 400, 600, whatever, try to change that. Second, be extremely vulnerable and humble. Let's recognize that you lose your culture, you lose your values, and it's going to ask you so much work to recreate the culture and find the way to make the values live again. If you are very humble and not try to pretend, but just working to make it happen again, it can work. And finally, understand that you got to collaborate with everyone. Otherwise, you are a dictator. You're going to force values. You cannot force values. You cannot make it happen by force. So you got to really recreate everyone step by step, collaborating. And at the end, the very core values that I've mentioned were still there. But some of the values of the beginning have changed because the people 15 years after, they don't want the same thing. The society has changed, the company has changed. And you also got to accept that your baby has changed and now it's going somewhere else. But it's got to be compliant with, once again, the very reason why you have created the company. And as far as you're there, you can embody that. And when you leave, which is my case now, you got to find and name successors that when you look at them, you feel that they want to fight for that too. For how long, I don't know. But at least I've left with successors that are ready to fight. I don't know for how long.
Christian, so must be very easy for you to recruit now. I mean, all the young want to have a purpose in their work, and you are operating and driving one of the very few purposeful real company. I mean, in Europe, if we look, we have many companies saying they do impact, but they don't really apply that apart from a marketing way of presenting themselves. You truly do it. So do you see an evolution since you have created Ecosia in the way you recruit people, in your attraction for talents? Is it something that you think as a competitive advantage for you going forward?
Yes, I think in general, I mean, not only for us, but for all really purpose-driven companies where purpose is really at the core of the company and not only something that the marketing department talks about, that I think those companies will be the future. So for various reasons, I think, I mean, consumers want those kind of companies and also employees want those kind of companies. And this will always give really purpose-driven companies a competitive edge. That said, of course, it's still difficult to hire certain engineers, for example. Like we're based in Berlin, the market is very competitive. You have Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of them hiring in the same market and often paying 2 or 3 times what we're paying. So that doesn't mean that automatically you have like all the positions filled immediately. But for many positions that we hire, we actually have hundreds of people applying and very, very good people. And we managed to build up a great team. And I think that that will ultimately also lead to success.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's going to be something that really customer wants. And again, John, when I look at Sunbird, would you say that the way you operate is different from your competitors because you have that values, or you're using the value as a way of doing marketing? So I mean, this is a tricky question, of course, because I can see, as I said at the beginning, much more, I mean, values for sustainable growth in the illustration of Talentsoft and Ecosia. But for Sunbird, and especially for a US company, is it something that now is true?
Yeah, to be honest, I've been startup founder for the past 14, 15 years. So I haven't really worked at other companies. So I can't really speak on behalf of how other companies are run. But one thing that we try to do really, focus on is like reiterating, using core values as a way to make decisions. To give an example, when you're growing in a kind of fast-growing startup, it's very easy to pay so much attention to what other competitors are doing. You start like looking at what they're up to, what features they release. You try to like learn, benchmark, copy from them. But we've always told ourselves, startups don't die from competition. We always die from lack of love from customers. So the more concerned we are about our competition, the more time we spend with our customer to really understand the problem that they're trying to solve. Not look at sideways or in the rear view mirror to understand what the competition is doing. So we'll always optimize towards customers first, and that's a rule that we always constantly apply. And the other thing is that you kind of mentioned like U.S. company, but we actually have one of our core values called global citizenship. We came from Korea. Originated from Korea, we became a U.S. company for legal fundraising purposes. But our desire is to really create this DNA of a truly globally embracing culture in a company. So people with any background, any culture, religion whatsoever can join the company without feeling being judged or without feeling they're putting in the bucket. They can just come in and contribute in a way that's meaningful to their own jobs. Then really feel free. So that we continue to kind of build a culture. So we don't want to call ourselves a Silicon Valley company. We want to call ourselves a global company. And then that's also part of our core DNA that we constantly talk about and train our folks around. So we constantly use that, again, to build our organization, hire and retain people that have a strong alignment to our core values.
And you did that since day one. Time is flying. I would love to ask all of you a concrete example of what you have done in your organization to embody the value for sustainable growth. Just a very practical example and food for thought for our audience. We start with Christian.
I think, ultimately one of my main roles is to bring ambition to the company. And I think we could very well say, okay, we've planted 135 million trees, everything is fine. But I think the problem is that maybe we are fine. I mean, Ecosia is doing well, but our climate isn't doing well. So I think this kind of, or maybe not ambition, but kind of really aiming high and also not just saying, okay, this is not our problem. I think everything that is related to climate change is our problem, and we're dealing with a lot of topics. And having a team that is really able to do that also means that I think nobody's working or even looking at how much time they're working. So this kind of us really wanting to have a big impact, I think that is something that I'm personally also living, and I think everybody else at Ecosia is also proud of. I mean, who else can say, I've planted a few million trees while I was working? So I mean, that's really something I think everybody can be proud.
Pretty impressive. John, concrete example. You speak.
Yeah, I guess some tactical examples. So in the recruiting process, we have someone in the process called value interviewer. That person has a power to veto any hire, regardless of what the hiring manager says. If that person says strong no, like not really aligned to our core values, the process ends immediately. So that person, we really care deeply about our core values. And we also have other things like what we call value champion, where every Monday we have a weekly stand-up, and we celebrate who best represented our core values, right? And with specific examples and why we decide to nominate the person. In the future, we want to collect those stories and actually build it into a culture book so that we can actually use it as a training material for new people coming on board. And lastly, all the executive members included, we should always be the best model that embodies those core values. Of course, no one's going to be perfect in all value category, but we should never have senior executive that is not strongly aligned to our core values. That really sets a wrong model for the entire organization. So we should put, money where our mouth is.
Crystal clear and very concrete. So then, Alexandre, last.
Well, I will come back on the vulnerability thing. With the COVID situation, obviously, we faced something totally unknown we've never faced before. And as the top managers and leaders of the company, we brought everyone together and said, well, we don't know how we are going to face that. We don't know exactly how we're going to keep our business alive this or this way. And we did not pretend knowing. We shared genuinely with everyone the issues we were facing, saying we don't know yet, but our job is to find solution and to find it collaboratively, collectively with you. And we really recreated everything with the people without lying, without pretending. And at the end of the day, we get everyone on board. And actually the business has continued to grow, but except of showing off, we've been quite vulnerable. And so everyone really felt with us, followed us. And I believe this is a real leadership, the today's leadership.
So thanks for that. I hope it was inspiring for you. Values is something that matters a lot for us, for France Digitale. And this is why we decided to have this topic. Where a moment where the market seems to be a bit crazy sometimes, we think that it's important to be grounded and not to forget what is essential. So thanks to you, and happy to talk after.
Thank you.